Hi guys, thank you for tuning into my channel. Today's video is going to be about a wonderful method of lovemaking that brings you closer to your partner. And believe it or not, it's going to probably be something that you are going to be shocked to hear. Okay, so one of the methods that I find to be the most close connecting type of lovemaking is the Kariza method. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, some people call it Karezza or Karezza. So, but I say Kariza. So, hopefully there's no like confusion with what I'm talking about. So Kariza is actually really, really beneficial. And I think it actually is somewhat parallel to basically somehow the dopamine response is like a consistent experience the entire time you are making love. Whereas typically a sexual experience can be like one and done and over with, right? And you kind of race to get to the ending because you just love the dopamine reward, right? So this type of experience, Kariza, is quite unusual. So it's really about slowing things down and really connecting with your partner and not focusing on completing of your task. So, for lack of a better term, um, basically you're focusing on every movement, and lovemaking can be absolutely incredible, just from the touching and the almost climaxing that happens all throughout the experience. And the goal of it is you could literally do this for hours and hours. And it's actually quite, it's, it does something even outside of the bedroom as far as keeps you connected with your partner and in ways that you never even thought. And it also is, it has a lot of benefits. If we're talking testosterone, we're talking about, typically when you have a release, your testosterone goes up, and then kind of you have this refractory period where you kind of basically don't want to have sex for a while. And it's not just the 15 minutes after, it can be a couple of days. And a lot of times when men report having orgasms, they actually have brain fog for a few days and then the whole thing happens all over again, So, if you're having sex 2 to 3 times a week and then you have the refractory period in between, a lot of men can experience brain fog. And personally, what I think that is from a neurological perspective is that you have this huge dopamine release. And whenever there's a dopamine release, there is an equal and opposite reaction in a sense where you have this pain period. And it doesn't necessarily have to be straight up pain, but it is actually like sort of like a recovery period and a lull in dopamine. So when that happens and you have that lull, it's really hard to come back out of that. And eventually it happens, but it's just how we are, made biologically. This is how we experience sex, essentially. Our main reason for being on the planet is to procreate, right? So from a biological perspective. So by not finishing, and that includes ladies as well, especially for me, it was a hard thing to sort of accept because I am very blessed to have the ability to, finish multiple times upon multiple times while that is going on. And so for me to not do it at all also creates this huge surge of connection with my husband outside. So when we're not in the bedroom and we just see each other while we're taking care of our kids, things are a lot more like loving and connected. And it's interesting. It's basically we have fallen in love with the idea of desire, right? So this actually is kind of like part of growth mindset in a way, if you're looking at like business and your desire to achieve. Like a lot of times I notice that in like let's say for example you have like sports athletes or something like that that wind up getting to the top of their game, and then once they do that, like that dopamine explosion, right, for them, that finishing point, wow, I got to the top, like there's like this huge lull afterwards that sometimes some people don't even come back from, because they're like, what's next, so I think that Kariza, combined with a lifestyle of kind of living like grateful and gratitude and slowing down and finding the dopamine, basically finding dopamine within the everyday things, which is appreciation, essentially, right? Appreciation for um, your life, right? The little things. So, like, even when it comes to sex, if you're slowing down and you're just focusing on the act of loving your partner, you are essentially loving like little things all lined up, and it's like these little dopamine hits, and you're keeping it consistent. You're not just focusing on the dopamine reward at the end. And that's basically like, I'm trying to draw the comparison for people so that they see that like there's their sports athletes, a bad example, but my only example right now. So like the sports athletes that, really kind of sometimes have a career crash at the end after they've reached their peak. Some people don't come back from that. And a lot of times like it's explained neurologically, where the um the idea is that they were focusing on that ultimate reward, and they weren't really focusing on the act of the desire, which is, you know, enjoying the ride, essentially, enjoying the hard work, enjoying the desire for that goal to be achieved. When we're only just working hard and experiencing the friction of that pushback, right? And we're pushing through it and we're working hard and finding yourself to actually be present and work through that hardness, that pain, right? And enjoying the aspect like, hey, I am getting through this. I am going to get through this. And I am slowly but surely. And just being there in the moment is actually creating like little tiny dopamine hits, right? So then you apply that to sex. It's like the same thing. If you're not focusing on the end result, you have this beautiful experience the entire time, and even outside the bedroom it continues to flourish. Like you literally have, like, it's still going on. Like you're still connected to that person even though you're not having any sort of sexual stuff going on. Like there's just this vibe between you two that is continuing. It's like you're like shared dopamine of some sort. So this is a real thing. Like I'm experiencing this and it's incredible. It's like wonderful. It changes your life. And I'm not saying that men shouldn't ejaculate, because you certainly do not want to have a problem with your testicles. But there are other things you can do to kind of relieve that tension. And I'm not talking about porn. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about, like massage and working out and, going for walks and stuff like that. It sounds kind of lame, but when you notice how on your game you are when you're not doing that, and how focused you are for your job, and how connected you are to your spouse or partner, you will know what I'm talking about.